as you can tell, I had a great time last night watching Ghostbusters Afterlife at it's not really my local cinema, but it's my buddy Sam, and I joined him there for one of the greatest evenings ever. Honestly, the audience we were with, it was they were a joy to be with, actually, because they knew exactly why they were at this film as well. I think me and Sam elicited quite a few laughs in the audience, as well as some cheers, which was awesome. I will say as well, there are two great post-credit scenes, so make sure you stay to the very end, and it's kind of worth your time staying till the very end, put it that way. So if you have thoughts about going into this film, but you think it's going to be woke, it is not woke at all. So don't worry about that going in. It is a nostalgia pill that treats the audience like myself from the 80s with a lot of respect. How it will do for newcomers, I don't know, but if newcomers are feeling a bit disenfranchised at the moment with the way entertainment is going, they might want to go back to the 1984 and 1989 classic films from Ivan Reitman. Now, the reason why I kind of feel a bit connected to this film emotionally, because Ghostbusters from 84 was the second time I'd been to the cinema, so you can imagine me going back in now how this is going to be. And Jason Reitman, who takes over from his father Ivan as director, does a terrific job. And the film, although it's set in Oklahoma, it actually was filmed in Quebec in Canada, so full marks to him for doing that, because the way they recreated Oklahoma in this film is amazing. But you know what? Let's talk about the performances. I'm not going to tell you the story about the film. It pretty much is given away in the trailer. McKenna Grace, who plays Phoebe, if you look at her, you kind of know what the family DNA is regarding her character. And I've got to say, this is a lesson to Marvel and Disney, because this is how you create a female character who's not annoying, who's not overpowering. You know, if you've seen Shang-Chi and his sister in that movie, it might as well have been her film, or Captain Marvel. They just appear out of nowhere and they're very arrogant and they just throw men aside. But McKenna Grace, she's an awkward 12-year-old who's got super intelligence. She's very shy around people and she finds it hard to make friends, but as her character develops, we get to see more of what her journey is going to be in this film, and it's terrific writing just all the way through. So I really appreciated that. And Paul Rudd as Gary Gruberson, what an awesome name. He plays a school teacher who reminds me of school teachers I had at my time in the 80s, who some of them, I kid you not, they wouldn't bother to teach you today's lesson. No, they'll bring in a VHS tape, plug it in, and back in our day, it was a Christopher Lee X-rated horror movie where he plays Dracula. But in this particular version, there are a lot more really cool horror films to go back to. I won't say any more about that, but when you see what he shows the kids, it is absolutely laugh out loud hilarious. And a couple of times in the audience as well, me and Sam had our Bill and Ted moment. I will say the trailer did a very good job in not giving anything away. So there are some major WTF bombs that come towards the end of the movie and maybe somewhere in the middle as well. So I thought they did a very good job of disguising that, because they do not want to disrespect the true fans. The 2009 video game for Ghostbusters was what Ghostbusters 3, the film, would have been like. There was that kind of DNA, the machinations, they were all there in that video game. Now, I've not played that video game yet, but I'm going to, because after seeing this film, I need to sort of like expand my appreciation of these beloved films. Now, I will say the rest of the cast, Carrie Coon, terrific actress, and she's great here as Callie, the single mum who has to bring up her kids, and I think she shows both sides of being comedic and serious at the same time. You forget she was in Avengers Endgame as well as Proxima Midnight, but I really like her when she plays these kind of roles. She looks really glamorous as well. I was like, whoa, that's a side of Carrie Coon I never thought I'd ever actually seen. She pulls it off with aplomb, which is a word I've mentioned before in a previous review. So she's great. And also Logan Kim as Podcast. Yes, that's his name, believe it or not. And he kind of reminds me of me, but with cooler hair. But he's like a mixture of Chunk from Goonies and Agent Cooper from Twin Peaks. I kid you not. He's an amalgamation of those characters and he is hilarious. Honestly, where did they find his comedic kids from? He's terrific. And Finn Wolfhard, who kind of looks like Paul Stanley from Kiss. Honestly, when you see how he looks, I mean, the only thing he's missing is the crazy makeup, but if you kind of sort of stood back and looked at him, he's kind of like a rock star in the making. I believe he's actually a singer in real life anyway, so the whole get-up that he has here in his film is terrific. And you know what? This film just feels like a smorgasbord, not just of the 80s, but the 70s as well. There's a diner that they go to that plays 1950s and 60s music, but that reminded me of George Lucas's American Graffiti. Now, if you've seen that amazing film, you'll understand why I'm comparing it to that film. Hand on heart, honestly, this might be the best experience I've had with a film in the cinema this year. Obviously, we got a certain Spider-Man movie coming out on the 17th of December, or rather the 15th. I don't know if that's going to kind of surpass this in terms of expectations, but honestly, things like spooky houses in the middle of the field or practically made. Oh, seeing the Ghostbusters vehicle again is just incredible. I mean, I had nostalgia tears, guys, just rolling down my face. It was a lot. Like, Sam wouldn't stop elbowing me in the film. Like, he said, "Oh my God, look at that, dude! Look at that!" It's just great, man. But it does want to take me to this article here that I saw on the Guardian's website, which I actually thought was just a pretty insulting article. And now, look, what I'm going to say about these bad takes from so-called media outlets. Look, let me just read this first, and then I'll just tell you what I think afterwards. So, consider the casual cowardice of a script that uses its own mythology to subtly erase 2016's All Gals reboot from the canon, giving the rage-choked trolls carpet bombing IMDb with 0-star ratings the vindication they have always craved. Even the championing of scientific expertise comes off as overreaching and aggrieved, from Grubeson's declaration that science is punk to the smug superiority of the pint-sized Phoebe. Okay, that's a lot to take in there, guys. So, obviously, this particular person, and who are they again? He strikes me as the kind of person that's never ever been to a film or a comic book convention. Had he been to one of these places, he'll probably see what kind of resonance something like Ghostbusters has with people. Now, when I've been to a comic book convention, I've never seen anybody cosplay as the gals from the 2016 movie. They're more or less cosplaying as, well, more actually, as the dudes. And that's not a sexist thing, it's just like what resonant. When you think of Ghostbusters, you think of Hal Ramis, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson, don't you? You don't think of Melissa McCarthy and the other females. You just don't, because they just don't resonate. Now, a quick story about that. Amy Pascal, who I thought was the dog's bollocks until I actually found that recently. Now, remember the Sony leaks that happened a few years ago? Well, one of the emails that emerged was the fact that Amy Pascal put a stop to Ivan Reitman from reviving Ghostbusters 3 as the official sequel to Ghostbusters 2. And it's really awful because Dan Aykroyd in 1999, and I had heard about this, but I didn't know the full story until recently, had written a screenplay for Ghostbusters entitled Hellbent. And it was going to be like he and the other older dudes were going to be coaching a new bunch of people, like I think it was 3 guys and 1 girl, to be the new Ghostbusters, to take over them, basically. And it was a great idea, but it needed a few reworks, a bit of re-scripting here, there, and everywhere. And then we had a 2009 game, the video game, which apparently is the closest thing that they got to what that film would have been. So when that game was released and it sold over 1 million copies, that kind of made Amy Pascal think, okay, you know what, we can do a proper film now. And then in the end, Paul Feig, who reluctantly accepted the gig, by the way, so it's often misconstrued that he took the job straight away and kind of turned it into the mess that it was. But apparently behind the scenes, he was having some breakdowns. He couldn't cope with doing certain aspects of the movie, like a song and dance routine. I've not seen the film, so I don't know exactly what that refers to and why it's there in the first place. But yeah, the whole thing about hating it because it's a female-centric Ghostbusters, that's not what is actually conception there. It is actually the fact they've remade the first film, which didn't ask to be remade in the first place. And the original casting choices for the female leads included Emma Stone and Jennifer Lawrence and Rebel Wilson. So had they had those 3 in there, we could have had a very different Ghostbusters film. And if they made it original and not a remake of the 1984 classic, then people wouldn't be so begrudging of it. And I tell you what really works about Ghostbusters Afterlife is the fact you've got a great group of kids who act like adults, but they have no idea they're acting that way. They just think it's a normal facet of life, and I really dug that. In fact, you think about films like Wizard with Fred Savage, Flight of the Navigator, all these really cool films with cool kids back in the day. When was the last time you ever saw that? Well, if you do, you see them on Disney, but forget about those because they're so sugared and saccharined and watered down, it's not worth it. But what I like about this movie, they don't treat the kids like kids, but more like adults. So I thought that was a terrific way to go. And again, it made me miss those films that I watched back in the day in the 80s. And I'm glad we've kind of got this revival now, which is, it might start a new trend in Hollywood again, going back to the old basics of what made a movie great in the first place. So guys, if you enjoyed my video today, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ding that dong for notifications when I upload a brand new video. If there's something strange in the neighborhood, who are you gonna call? I can hear you.
You can run, but you can't hide!